Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast. I am Nick McDaniel, and don't fall out of your seats, ladies and gentlemen, as I am joined by one of our head correspondents, Byron Fancher.
Well, that's
It's going to take a minute to get used to, isn't it?
yes. I'm trying to avoid a horrible joke to follow that up, but folks, I'm glad you didn't tune into the pre-show because it sounded much like a bad episode of the National Enquirer podcast. But we are here with facts today about a sport, not about facts. Professional wrestling, the thing we all love. And it's going to be an interesting show today because it's been an interesting week in wrestling, don't you think, Nick?
Dude, it has been... look, pre-WrestleMania, it's just felt like big story, big story, big story. Every couple of days, it seems like something's coming out. And look, if you haven't realized yet, by the way, I want to throw it out there because it's hard to, compile it all, everything into just this episode, the podcast every week. So what we are doing a little bit different over on our YouTube and on our Patreon. If you not just liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, all that stuff for the YouTube channel, but also become a member. Yes, there are tiers. If you become at least a $10 level or higher, every single day we're going to start covering some stuff. Well, I say every single day, most days. We're going to try to cover a lot of the hot topics like the next morning, as we go through. But by the way, if you're a $25 member or higher, you can actually join and actually be part of those programs. And there's already been a couple done. The one we recorded today, you want to check out. I had, look, the old grizzled vet himself, the incredible Huck, Will Huckabee joined me, and we talked a little bit about Vince McMahon and stock selling and conspiracy theories. Here's the thing. We're going to discuss it just a little bit. That episode's got some conspiracy theories that'll blow your mind. So make sure you're checking those out. And I was joined by Huck. And here's the thing. If you're $25 or higher, you could join me and Huck on an episode. I promise you, that alone is going to be fun.
You could be participating in an episode of the podcast.
We're calling it Coffee and Crossfaces. It's a morning special. It is early. We record these things at like 7:30, 8 o'clock at the latest, so that way we can still get our days done. But yes, and then before that we had a little talk about the tag belts. Check those out. Look, again, it's on Patreon, $10 level or higher. YouTube, become a member, $10 or higher levels. And that's kind of how you get involved. So,
and when you say hot topics, you don't mean we're going to have to go buy all black clothes and go to hell, right?
No, we're not talking about shopping at the mall or anything like that.
Okay,
we're going to discuss. And look, sometimes they're not necessarily like, oh, this is a hot take, hot topic. The reason we want to do it is just like not a lot of thought process. Like we didn't spend a week getting ready for it. It's like our initial reactions. Boom, we're all talking about it. But some guys are like, hey, I just want to talk about XYZ. If you're $25 level or higher, we'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. Yeah. Byron, what do you want to talk about?
What do you want to talk about?
So
he's the Cody Rhodes of podcasting, Mr. Nick McDaniel.
And look, so let's kind of dive down that road because, like we said, man, there's a ton of stuff to get through this week. And look, I teased a little bit. Vince McMahon essentially filed all the documentation. He's selling out. Like he'll be completely done.
Washing his hands. The great Vince washing. Vince is gone. It's almost like Jamie Martin Pressure Washing and Company has washed Vince away from the WWE for the first time since his dad started the Capital Wrestling Company or whatever they called it. That there has not been a McMahon owning. I mean, I'm sure Stephanie's got a part of it, but it's owned by a big company now. It's not a McMahon-owned company. Vince is gone.
It's hard to wrap your head around just the concept that, like, when we mean Vince is gone, when these stocks sell, there's a disclaimer here, when those stocks are sold, he's done. Like 0%.
I thought there was no chance in hell this would ever happen.
No, I mean...
That's funny right there.
Yeah. I don't really know what's going, like some people's theory are, he'll ride off on a sunset in a yacht somewhere and, whatever. I don't know. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you wanted, like I said, Huck and I, we threw out some crazy ones. Look, that one I'd shared literally right before we started recording, I thought your head was going to explode.
Yes. My head, it is so large. It just because it has almost exploded so many times, and Nick almost pushed it the rest of the way. I call bullshit on all of this. I do not think Vince is going to do anything. He's 78 years old. So is my mother. My mother is not starting a new company. She's sitting in an apartment watching reality TV and needing my daughter to drive her to a colonoscopy.
Look, I mean, Vince is not your typical 78-year-old, so time will tell. The strange part to me that I didn't quite understand is why sell now? I mean, we just came off WrestleMania, and I want to just, look, we're not going to have a long conversation about it, but so we're going to do some basic math, right? They said they did 19. They had to report last year's 39. 19 point some odd million. Let's call it 19 and a half. Just to make up numbers.
Both nights, right?
Both nights. They claimed they were up 78%. Okay, that puts you roughly at 35 million. So they're claiming that they did 35 million between the two nights. So that's 17 and a half both nights. Think about it. That's gate, Myron. That ain't sponsorships. That ain't merch. That ain't WWE World. None of that.
So in one night, they did almost as much as they did in both nights last year.
Correct.
And then for the first time ever, they had a sponsor on the mat.
Dude, they had sponsors on the mat. They had those LED boards. They had the post, the turnbuckle post. They had turnbuckle pat. Like, look, we had a topic on this. We talked about this last week, a little bit about that. But it's like, yeah, we're not talking about any of that money. We're not talking about money we're not talking about money that they got from the city to come there. None of that. Like, we're literally talking tickets. And if you take some rough math of, I think the number reported was 66,000 roughly per night paid. That's about $299, $300 a ticket, Myron, average. So my question again, again, you want to hear the conspiracy theories? Yeah, they're behind a paywall. I apologize for that. But why would you get out when a company's rolling like this?
Well, I mean, the stock is through the roof.
Yeah.
Had I bought stock prior to WrestleMania, which I was thinking about doing, I would have made a ton of money. Instead, I bought AMD stock, and my stock I've lost $1,000. Had I bought WB stock, which I thought was not the right decision at the time, I would have made a lot of money on a wrestling stock.
I'm looking real quick. I think year to date, it's like 21% up, something like that, 20% up. Now, over last year, it's down a little bit. It took a hit with that, that stuff happened. But literally over year to date, you're up like 20%. That ain't bad. That's again, now, unless he thinks it's going to fall again, so be it. I understand.
Well, cash out while it's high.
But that's if you believe it's at its peak, or unless you have another ulterior motive, which that's where all the conspiracy theories lie. Here's the other thing I wanted to ask you about Mania. Some of the facts came out that like 70, 80, some crazy number % sold before a single match is even announced.
And it'll happen again this year.
Yeah.
The moment Mania tickets are put on sale, that guy in the green T-shirt is going to buy his. And everyone else is going to buy theirs. If you know you're going to be able, once they announce the date, people are going to go ahead and request their vacation. Because you know what happens at Mania? There's going to be matches. You don't care who's in those matches. You're going to get the Mania experience. It's going to be glorious. It's going to be a great show. Why, Nick? Why, Nick?
Hey, look, it's WrestleMania is what it is. It's that simple. It's bigger than it's the only thing that you can compare it to. Would you say is the Super Bowl?
Yes, because regardless of who's going to be in there, it's the Super Bowl. Doesn't
Right.
matter who's in it. Now, there's going to people that their teams are going to be in it are going to buy scout
Right.
tickets later.
Yeah, because you there's my point. Like, WrestleMania is WrestleMania. The Super Bowl. I almost think like you're going for the event. You're not necessarily going. Now, I think it's a perk when you found out, oh crap, I bought tickets and The Rock's going to be there. I bet that was like, woo, I hit the jackpot. But like Sheamus fans were probably like, oh man, because Sheamus wasn't there. You know what I mean? Like, but it works both ways. But I just think it's just the pure event. Like, if you're going to WrestleMania, I think that's why you're going. It's Mania.
It's Mania. And then you get to go to all that stuff they got going on and the experience. And you get to Mania this, and they got all this other stuff you can go to, and you can get your pictures, and you can do all this. It's like Disney World for wrestling. One time a year. You got to go. You've been to Mania when it was in Atlanta, didn't you go?
Yeah, yep. Went to Mania when it was at the old Georgia Dome. We did Access. We did it. Now, Fanatics has taken over Access, and now it's WWE World or something, whatever they call it now. But yeah, it's different. But it looked. Fanatics does that. Like, that's one of the things they do. So they I'm sure they took that experience and even raised the bar a little bit, and that's why I would just love to. Like, I can't wait to at the end of the day to see what the numbers were. Because, like, I think they said Cody Rhodes alone sold $1 million in merch over WrestleMania weekend.
$1 million in merch.
One guy. But he's not over. He's overrated.
He never
just
should have
saying.
crushed that throne. He never should have crushed that.
Exactly. But look, WrestleMania next year could look it's going to look totally different. And there's a couple reasons why. Let's start with the closest thing. The draft. It's not this weekend. It's like it's the next.
It starts on Raw or starts on SmackDown?
SmackDown. It starts on SmackDown and ends on that Raw the following.
Okay. I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait.
By the way,
the draft's always fun.
People are like, why did they pick it that way? It's the NFL draft weekend, folks, just so you're aware. So yeah, that's kind of why it plays into, like, if you go #draft, you're gonna get followed. You're gonna get some C's.
Everybody's in a draft frenzy.
Yeah,
you're right in the middle of the frenzy.
Exactly.
Everybody's in a drafting mood. So what do? You just grab up into that frenzy. It's beautiful.
Yep. I wanted to add, because we were discussing this a little bit before we started, and some of the stuff that we were talking about were they this year they emphasized all three brands are involved. Even to the point, Myron, I don't know if you noticed the logo for the draft. It's got a red W, it's got a blue W, and then it's got that yellow whatever tint, the little swoosh behind it. So all three brands' colors are even in the WWE logo for the draft logo. I'm like, okay, that's
because we were having this conversation. I'm like, they got some people down there that could go up this year, and some people that go down this year. And you're like, there is no up or down. They're wanting to make everybody the NXT a third brand.
Yeah.
A legitimate third brand, because why did you explain this to me? Because they're going to be in 3 different places this year, right?
Correct. Going into next year, the calendar year next year, you're going to have NXT on the CW, so a broadcast network. SmackDown's going to be on USA, a cable network, and Raw on a streaming platform. So what we need to do in our attempts, I'm speaking, I own stock, so I'm saying what we need to accomplish here is make this a 3-legged tripod versus a 2-legged, whatever, to make it stable. I can clearly see a future. You brought up one of the greatest examples of, there have been other guys that have done it, but Baron Corbin may have saved his career by going back to NXT. Notice I said back, not down, but yes, he was. Go explain. Like you were kind of like, hey, he was kind of done.
Yeah, he's always been like plain. He's always been that dry ass biscuit with nothing on it. He needed butter. He needed a piece of sausage. He's never really got on. But he went back to NXT and they put him with Steiner, and they formed that crazy tag team. And he got over, and he's a character now. He's a legitimate character, and they're popular, and it's a thing. And Baron Corbin has become a player, and he's featured on all the pay-per-views now. He's grown an appeal that he never was able to get on the roster, wearing those stupid hats. Remember when he come out in a stupid pimp hat?
He was Happy Corbin. Cool? Remember, he was Happy Corbin.
That was horrible. That's the worst gimmick of all time. But now he's got something good going on.
Because he's got a place. I think when he moved over to NXT and they put him with Braun Breaker, when they put them together, I think little did people realize what it would actually do for both. Braun has now, obviously, he's moved on. He's up to the Smackdown roster now, or I think he's on Smackdown. Yeah, I think he did. He's moved on, and he's left NXT. I think the what Baron Corbin could teach him, because here's the thing, I think people underestimate the jump, like what the challenges you're going to face when you leave NXT and go to Raw or SmackDown. That's what a veteran like Baron Corbin can teach.
Yes.
It's even like, it's the stuff. It's not even just, there's Shawn Michaels, there's William Regal, there's all these guys down at NXT that can teach you the in-ring. And obviously they can teach you the outer ring, but they're also busy doing those other things. Like,
they're teaching a lot of other people.
Correct. They're not, but you can have somebody that you can, even if it's a guy you're feuding with, like we just saw. I think I maybe said this last week when Cross and the AOP lost at Mania. I'm like, dude, maybe they just need to go to NXT and retool, because that's just a whole thing maybe. And guess what? This week they show up on NXT. You can build, there are players you can build that franchise around, I think.
Yeah. They teach you how to pack your suitcase, because you travel on the big roster. You don't travel at NXT. They'll teach you how to get on the airplane. They'll teach you how to get into the building and get set up to go on TV. All those little things, how to get the makeup on time, how to get to this, how to do this, how to get around the building. Something you don't have to do down in Florida, where you're in the same building every day.
But they might also tell you what things you don't want to do. Like, hey, man, I know it's fun to do this, but you probably don't want to do that. Like,
well, you pull into Portland, let's go eat here. Let's not go to this strip club, or let's not do this. Let's do that.
And when we talked about, NXT as a third brand, if I'm pick a wrestler who lives in, especially if you live in Orlando, but if you just live anywhere in Florida in general, for the most part, send me to NXT. I know where my TV's at every week. Yeah. The only time I got to travel is when we do a PLE, like, at one of the big shows when we travel. That's for a year, maybe.
Yeah. And I mean, what wrestler doesn't live in Florida?
It seems that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
The ones who realize there's no sales, there's no state income tax. That's what they want. Yeah. That's why they live there. But it's also, by the way, especially if you're a WWE talent, I don't know, it's because where the performance center is. If you have an injury, it's easy to get to. Orlando's an easier airport to get out of because they got this Disney place that's there. Like, it's a lot of people travel in and out of the Orlando airport. So, yeah. I mean,
beaches.
Well, Orlando doesn't, but Florida does. Yeah. I mean, but yeah, I mean, it's a hop, skip, and a jump across. And the great thing about Orlando, you can go in either direction. You can go to the Tampa side or you can go to the Daytona side. It's like, what? And it's just a couple hours away. But like I said, I think if I just would think as a talent, like, you're going to pay me main roster money to live in my house in Orlando and literally drive over to the Performance Center studios and film TV every week. I don't have to fly to Columbus, Ohio this week and then Madison, Wisconsin the next, like the constant travel. No, I'm like, you can sign me up. I'm okay with that. I'll help build some young kids. So especially being as it's going to be on
pay-per-views are phenomenal. Yeah. The weekly shows are phenomenal. I enjoy NXT. I wish I could get to watch it more. It's just hard for me to work all the wrestling in that I watch.
Yeah.
There's 5 or 10 nights of wrestling and then we go to wrestling. So sometimes I take a night off, to be honest with you folks.
You got to try.
I hate this NXT night. A lot of times it's NXT night because I'm up writing notes to come into the show the next day, recording day. But NXT is usually one of the better programs.
Oh, yeah. But listen, in general, all of them are on fire right now. Look, let's be honest. WWE's a lot of momentum. They're really cooking. One of the biggest stories they've had for the last, well, let's see.
10,000 years.
It's the biggest story.
Over 3 years now. 3 years.
Well, it's because here's the thing. Are you making the argument it's been their biggest story clearly since they've been running the Bloodline? But some people would argue it's been their best story in decades.
Likely, yes. Very likely, yes. And when people were tired and pissed off at the story for a long time. And in the last 6 months, it has become absolutely captivating. Since maybe SummerSlam, it has become absolutely captivating. How can Solo Sikoa become such a massive player and speak 3 words, maybe 3 words in the last 6 months?
They've done the storytelling in the little pieces. And, I shared the image on social media and was like, when one story ends, another begins. Because clearly at this point, let's assume, we'll talk about this maybe in a minute. I was going to say Roman's going away for a minute. We'll get in that Roman conversation.
The stove has not got cold.
Well,
Paul is scared.
Because it's really a taste of, we finished the chapter because we thought that was the end of the story, right? No, clearly it's the chapter has closed of the Cody Rhodes finishing his story. I'm going to say something. Ooh, this is a hot take, Myron. Cody Rhodes' story was only a chapter in the Bloodline book.
There was a Sami Zayn chapter.
Multiples, right? There've been multiple chapters along the way. It's no insult, by the way, to Cody's story. Cody, obviously, everybody knows what Dusty. Anyway, let's go on. Now that the title has been removed from the story, there's only one prize left to be involved, Myron. And what is that?
It's control of the family.
The head of the table.
Head of the table. It's Solo saying, who told me to tell him who he crushes the phone when Paul tries to call Roman Reigns. And Solo said it was the order of the head of the table or the tribal chief.
Yeah.
That's what he said. I do this. Well, who's the tribal chief now? Is it The Rock or is it Roman? Since Roman lost, is it The Rock? Is The Rock away filming movies? Is Solo? Is it somebody else? Because we know for the fact Roman's away filming movies.
Yeah, that he is. I shared. Look, if you haven't seen it yet, go check it out. There was I saw it on social media. Keke Palmer, the actress, she posted a cute little, this little picture of Roman sitting there with a title belt, and I shared that asking if that belt looked familiar. We'll leave it. We're not going to say who's the wears or whatever, but everybody knows. Go check that belt out. Who does that belong to? There's a couple of jokes we've inserted in there. Check out that post.
Is he like Dr. Evil in that movie?
I don't know.
It looked like Dr. Evil. There were babes all around. He was on a throne. There were stacks of gold bars, like gold, old-timey, like Roadrunner style gold bars everywhere.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. But so clearly what that means is Roman's out of the picture for a while. Rock has told us he's going off to film a movie. Like, he didn't even hide it. He's like, hey, I'm going to make a movie. I'll be gone. I'm going to go away for a little while.
Jimmy was punished.
By the order of the tribal chief. Well, who's the tribal chief that ordered Jimmy be punished?
Crushed Paul's phone. Wouldn't let Paul call Roman Reigns.
Tomat Tonga.
What is Paul's role? Yeah, all of a sudden, Tomat Tonga shows up.
Yeah.
That's Haku's son.
Yep.
Are we getting Haku? Are we getting Haku to coincide with the movie?
I know I know there's a lot of a twist and all this kind of stuff that came out because everybody's like, well, he's Tongan, he's not Samoan. Okay, well, that kind of.
Oh yeah, prove it. Show me the difference. Give me a map. Show me the difference.
So here's the thing. Lay these pieces, by the way. Rikishi, Haku, tag team before.
Rikishi's brother was in a tag team with Haku before too.
I'm saying, like, there's enough pieces here, folks. Like, we got family members tagging, and Haku's always been like a, unofficial, official.
Who's the
member.
Barbarian? Where's the Barbarian in part of this?
I don't know about that. I don't know if that. Now you're reaching.
I'm going to get to see the Barbarian this weekend.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You're going to drive up to Gastonia and see the Barbarian and Steel Reel to me, Dave. Shout out to Dave and shout out to Barb. I'm sure that'll be a blast. But yeah, like
an epic film piece.
It could. Yeah.
And my role is correspondent.
There you go. And so I think the pieces are being set. I've seen there's a great, I don't know if you've seen this image that's floating around about Survivor Series. And it's a teams against each other. And it's Rock, Solo, Tomat Tonga, and Jacob Fatu versus Jimmy, Jay, Roman. And then there's always the one that changes. I think it has to be one person. Everybody disagrees, I think, in general. I keep seeing Cody's picture, and I'm like, keep Cody away from it. I don't think he belongs there.
No. Cody doesn't need it. Cody shouldn't get involved.
If you get that fourth man, it has to be Sammy.
Oh, yeah.
Because then you have the Usos, the honorary Us, and Roman versus Rock. And basically, think about it. Solo, Tama, and Jacob Fatu, like a younger, like as far as newer being exposed to the audience, they all get the rub from being with Rock. Jacob's not there yet, by the way.
Jacob's Umaga's kid?
Jacob, yeah, he was there. He was in MLW, but he has been signed. It has been confirmed. He has signed, so clearly at some point he's coming.
Who's Umaga's kid? Is that Jacob?
I think that's Jacob Fatu, yeah.
Okay, and Roman would have to go back and ask Sammy, or Jay would ask Sammy, especially after that awesome spot where Jay went outside and Sammy was waiting outside of that building the other night. Oh, that was so awesome. Sammy standing outside the first place he'd ever seen a wrestling show. Oh, that was so touching. I was just so in love because I still remember the first place I went and saw a wrestling show.
Sorry, you got me. I'm like, I always doubt myself. I'm looking literally.
Well, I mean, it's hard to keep up with that stuff because Tomat Tonga isn't really Haku's son. He's Haku's brother's son that was adopted by Haku. So it's kind of complicated at times. But
he was Tonga Kid's
son.
Yeah. Okay, sorry.
Okay.
So he was part of the Samoan SWAT team.
Yes.
With it. So anyway, sidebar. I know that I knew it. I doubted myself, and I was like, oh no, go double check. So,
oh man,
that's what happens. But look, yeah, because we talked about some of that way they're recording that the stuff, and it's tip your cap. All I'm saying is like at least it looks different. We're big fans of better than, less than, different than, and they're at least shooting stuff different. Like, did you notice it was a weird thing? They did a backstage, and they literally went to a match that was started already this week. I was like, what the hell was that? Like, they didn't, it was like, literally, I was like, it's just different. Like, hey, by the way, guys, just because we're doing backstage, like, you guys out in the arena, like, the show doesn't stop. We're going to keep rolling.
I like that. I really like what they're doing, Nick. I really like what they're doing. I really like the way they shot WrestleMania. I just, it's so nice to see something different. After years of seeing the same thing. Mm-hmm. And as Jim Cornette used to call him, Bucky Beaver is gone. Kevin Dunn is gone. And I understand why Kevin Dunn did things a certain way. And we were talking about that earlier in the when we were doing the pre-show. Wouldn't you do things a certain way if the guy that paid you to do things wanted it a certain way?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
it worked.
I would hate to say he'd shit on your work. But
I mean, it's just,
but
if you're doing something and that's what your boss wants, you just keep doing that, whether it's the way you would want to do it or not.
Well, I mean, we're married. We both have our wives tell us to do stuff, and we know it's not the right way, but we do it the way they want it because it's just we're going to get shit if we don't do it the way they want it. I've sat there and done stuff. I know it's not the right way, but she wants it done a certain way or I'm going to have to listen to her. So I just like, okay, whatever. And Kevin Dunn had to be the right way. I mean, you want to keep your job. You want to listen because Vince apparently made people's lives living hell. if they didn't do things the way they wanted it to. So I get it, but it's so much prettier now.
Yeah, I think it's
Just
just
so much
different. It's refreshing. Maybe that's it.
Yes.
The word I'm looking for is refreshing. But look, not refreshing. Unfortunately,
Oh, no.
like we're gonna pick up the pace here a little bit. Rhea Ripley banged up, injured, has
This
to
hurts
vacate
me.
the title. Yeah, it sucks. Timing just sucks.
And all of a sudden you've got a massive heel that's being developed that hurt Rhea Ripley and took her out, that doesn't care, that looks so mean, that was such an innocent little girl for so long, who was so hard to make a heel out of. But she took out somebody who now was, Rhea was really popular.
Yes.
Even as a heel. She was becoming that anti-hero. And all of a sudden, cute little Liv Morgan took her out. And Liv is just like, I'm the big. And was she not totally believable as a heel in those promos she cut?
She did. I think she did a great job. The only concern that I have with, she was already starting to get babyface reactions. Rhea was.
Mm-hmm.
When she comes back in 3 to 5 months, she's getting a huge babyface pop. So where does that leave Judgment Day between now and then? Like, they've got to figure out something. I don't know what that is. Tappedoutpod@gmail.com. Let us know what you think. Like, what would you do with Judgment Day between? Because Priest behavior looked a little babyface-ish. But the biggest challenge you're going to face, if you're going to keep them heel, what do you do when she comes back? Because she's getting a babyface reaction because she was already loved, and now she's going to, look, any return gets a babyface reaction, it seems like.
Well, you've got a tag team. You got a potential tag team you can form off with Balor. You've got JD McDonough and you've got Dom. You can spin a tag team any way out of that. Balor's contract's going out. Balor is still a great singles wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
You could do so many amazing things with him as a singles wrestler. There's so much you could do anywhere in there, not in Judgment Day. So nobody's going to be hurt by Judgment Day breaking up. So
no. So hopefully with that, when she comes back, look, I don't want to spend a ton of time. By the way, again, the initial launch of the Coffee and Crossfaces behind the paywall, we discussed the new belts, the new tag team titles that were given to R-Truth and The Miz. I'll just real quick let you thumbs up, thumbs down. What was your take?
So pretty. Those I like the design on the split tag team belts. Then they brought them back together, but they just were kind of generic. They were good looking belts, but they were generic. Those new tag team belts are going to have 2 of them, 1 for each show, which I thought they needed. Because that way you had tag teams crossing over and you had the Judgment Day on both shows. But those new belts look good. I like what they're doing with them. I think you're going to get A-Town down and let them develop, definitely.
They'll have it clearly has established some type of a design where the design with that WWE logo kind of smaller in the middle, and then over on SmackDown you get the giant WWE logo on a belt. So clearly, we obviously have it. I'm assuming that's what we're getting. So
something that looks more like the belt over there.
Yeah. Only other note before we move on from WWE, look, all of the teases, the QR codes I shared on social media. I got the video and I uploaded it to Facebook, I believe it was where I put it. So it's probably on Instagram too. Clearly, like, we're heading back to the white rabbit style, like QR code stuff or whatever. Who's coming, like the Bray Wyatt story continuing through. Clearly, it has to be through Bo Dallas, his brother, with Uncle Howdy and Eric Rowan saying people are saying he's canceling indie bookings to contractual obligations. Braun Strowman should be healed by now, hopefully. Alexa Bliss had a baby a while back, so when is she coming back? I think hers was just time off, and maybe they just didn't have anything for her.
Yeah. Why come back to a super crowded women's division when you're already super popular? You come back when you're needed, or you come back when you've got a spot. I'm gonna give the most unpopular take of all time, and this is not a slight on Bray Wyatt or anything like that. The whole Fiend gimmick and all that other stuff, I wasn't into it as much as other people were. I'm not just crapping all over it, but it just wasn't for me. You know, it just wasn't my gimmick. Now I love Bray Wyatt, but I liked him more in the little hat than I did in the whole Fiend thing. But everybody loved that. So if the Uncle Howdy and the flashes and all that other stuff make people happy, more power to them.
I think, I know this sounds weird from a wrestling standpoint. I think people just want closure. I think this is what this is. I think this is let's complete this story because it was just kind of abruptly taken.
Fair.
Most
fair.
stories in wrestling, you can't actually do this. But with these characters, I think you kind of can. So I hope they look. Here's my thing. I hope if this at all helps Bo Dallas, the Rotunda family, you know, with some type of a closure, and they get to kind of complete this dream that Bray Wyatt had. Okay, I'm in. Let's do this and let's, you know, get the closure for everybody. Maybe that's what this is about.
Well, they're going to sell a ton of merch. I mean, they're going to sell a ton of merch. They're going to make a lot of people happy. It's going to be an interesting thing. Everybody's going to watch it. Ratings will probably pop, which is good for the business because there are people doing things that aren't popping ratings.
Well,
not popping
theoretically, I was about to say, well, technically, kind of, sort of. Let's go ahead. Look, we're briefly going to touch on this because, look, like you said, I appreciated your analogy. This is like kicking a dead horse at this point. Yeah. We're going to talk about the Punk footage because everybody knows our vicious loop that we have of we record on Wednesday prior to Dynamite, but the show drops after Dynamite, so it's always kind of a vicious cycle there. AEW just makes the decision. They actually do air the Punk incident at All In. I think we've covered it on like some behind the paywall stuff. Maybe we've talked about it briefly here and there. I don't know. It's just not. Here's the thing. There's a part of me that says, like, going into it, remember me saying, like, if it proves Punk was lying, I understand. Well, the problem was it didn't. Was he the? Here's the thing, though. Hold on. I want to ask you this because this was a. I don't think I've said this to you. Somebody asked me this, and I said, did the footage prove that CM Punk was the aggressor in the situation? Yes. However, I don't think anyone, when they heard the parties involved, I don't think anybody believed Jack Perry was. We probably always assumed from the get-go that CM Punk was the aggressor.
No. We did not hear what Jack Perry was saying. We don't know if Jack Perry was we know CM Punk hit him first. We don't know what Jack Perry said that set him off.
Well,
Punk was the physical aggressor.
CM Punk's version of the story said he does say that Jack Perry said, "What are you going to do about it?"
And he did about it.
Okay, there's the part of saying, all right, he didn't.
It was a case of and find out, and he found out.
Punk wasn't going to get punked.
No.
This is what I said to somebody. Ooh, yeah, I'm going to say this. Sorry, I got to get comfortable here. This is not going to be popular at all. Jack Perry epitomized a generation of people who feel like you can say something and nothing's going to happen because you do it all day on social media.
Yes.
I agree or disagree with him, putting this out there. Punk's from a generation of, you said it.
And find out.
F around and find out. And guess what?
Yes.
Punk called him on it.
They brought Punk in as a veteran and a backstage leader. Okay? How are you going to lead people if when they refuse to listen to you, you don't have a consequence? You can't put him in timeout. You can't put him in detention. You don't have the power to suspend him.
Would you ask, hold on, I want you to finish your thought, but I'm going to ask you because this is, I think, answers this for me. It's not only that he didn't listen, he argued it, like he pushed back on like you're coaching, or, okay, coaching might be a little under what he was doing, but
he endangered the company, Nick. He did something stupid enough that endangered the company. He could have hurt himself, caused a bunch of problems. Had this happened 20 years ago, all of the locker room would have took him outside and beat him up.
I don't know. I don't know that anybody would have cared 20 years ago. That may be the struggle.
I just don't think this would have been tolerated. But Tony Khan, I remember hearing stories about a fan that Bill Watts took backstage and stood on his head. Okay? If that would have been Bill Watts, he would not have been scared for his life like Tony Khan was. It's a different time with different people.
Will Huckabee shared a funny thing that was like, he would have fired Jack Perry because he lost the fight.
Yeah, he's a wrestler, for Christ's sake.
Now, listen, and here's the thing. I don't even know that I'd call it a fight.
It wasn't a fight.
It's Conrad Thompson, by the way, said something that was spectacular about why not to show this footage. Fights, real life fights, generally aren't exciting, especially in the context of a world of pro wrestling. They look completely like it's a letdown,
Just like
and it was.
AJ Styles and LA Knight at that press conference. That looked like crap. But that's what it looks like when normal people jump on top of each other and try to hurt each other. It looks like grown men scuffling around.
Punk and Perry is a lot like, usually it's like a push, a shove, and then they're grab a hold of each other, and you're rolling around at that point.
I hit you, you hit the ground. Or you do this, somebody grabs you before you can do anything worse.
Agreed, yeah. But so look, there was we talked about this. There was going to be like a little bit of a boost. People would see it, be disappointed, and then the ratings started going down. And it literally, if you look at the quarter hours, that's exactly what happened. It was like it held, they showed it, and then it's like, hey, we peaked at 900, by the end we're back down. Like, come on, man, you're killing me.
But the 900 was before the video was shown. It was 900 people tuning in to see what was going to happen. When they didn't show it at the first 5 seconds, like AEW does everything else, they got bored and tuned out. Okay? And then they bring Ospreay on there to take a shot at Triple H. And it was, Ospreay, who cuts a great promo, in my opinion, cuts a bad shot at Triple H. And apparently it wasn't even his promo.
No, he was giving it. That's what they're saying. I mean, that's what whoever they are.
They give him words to say. And it's not going to hurt him.
No, because here's the thing. When you go back, look, do I think he was probably, when Triple H was referencing it on the Pat McAfee show, was he talking about Will Ospreay? Maybe. He could have been talking about Okada. Right? He could have been talking about Mercedes Moné. Right? He could have been talking about anybody. But he never said anybody's name. So if they thought they were, here's the thing, what does it say about the company if they thought that he was talking about you, if you're Will Ospreay? Whatever.
Not Will Ospreay thought it, the company did.
Right, because they were like, hey, say this back. And he was probably like, okay, whatever. But then, like you said, you brought up, like, because I know a lot of people are like, well, there went all his chances of ever working for WWE. No. If Cody went back, look, and I get it. Because here's the thing. You want me to, again, another crazy take. In the ring, Cody's nowhere near what Will Ospreay is.
Oh. Or Okada.
Promo, character, maybe. By the way, I got to throw this in here just because my wife would appreciate this. Did you see that Ospreay says he's on the autism spectrum?
No, I did not say that.
He's completely dyslexic to the point someone had to read his contract to him to sign. And then I was like, yeah, no, I'm not shitting on it, dude. There's a part of me that's like, tip my cap and kudos to this guy that if he's so dyslexic, people are reading his contract to him. By the way, don't trust people that much. Ask Shohei Tani. But then there's also maybe have them like, okay, can we do a digital version where it'll read it to me so then I can like electronically sign it? Maybe
your interpreter.
Yeah, your interpreter. But and like I said, but then
Marty Jannetty's dyslexic now.
Yeah, but dude, if it to also be on the autism spectrum too, and
he wasn't when he started. That's
real. Yeah.
But the worst part about the whole thing was when they stuck that footage into that Young Bucks gimmick. That was so bad. How can people like those guys?
Well, you're not supposed to like them. They're heels.
But the gimmick was so bad, Nick.
I don't even know that they looked like they were in on it. Like they were even like, all right. Like they were like not pro or con. They're just like, this is creative. Let's roll with it. Yeah. I've seen that look in eyes. You know where we've seen that look that they had in their eyes?
Where's that?
Guys in WWE like 3 years ago. Like, all right, just give me my
Oh my
lines. I'll read them.
Oh my God, you're so damn right.
But hey, let's keep it rolling, man. I do look positive stuff. Look, it's not AEW, but it's AEW adjacent. Jon Moxley wins the IWGP New Japan, to translation for most people, championship. Becomes the first guy. Look, and I know everybody's going to roll their eyes. I do think there's a lot. This is an accomplishment, whether people want to give him credit for it or not. To be the first guy to be the WWE, AEW, and the IWGP champion, that's a big deal, man. Because we used to make a big deal when guys were like, oh, they were the NWA, WWF, New Japan.
We said that about Cody. The minute Cody won the title, he was one of 4 people that held that NWA and WWE titles.
Right.
And there was a father-son. It was all kind of things.
Yeah.
Quoting Cody on. It was a big deal.
Yeah, and I look. I know there's lots of times we take look. We both are full out that we're not the biggest Jon Moxley fans.
No.
But like, look, when credit's due, you pay it. So kudos to the guy for pulling it off. I mean, I clearly it meant something to him, and it's something he wanted to do, and he did it. And in wrestling, to me that's a cool thing.
I think it would have been better off if he just showed up at Mania in his Shield costume with Seth Rollins, but if he's not going to do this,
I think we get that couldn't happen. Look, the 2 biggest disappointments, arguably for WrestleMania, were I cannot believe I'm about to say that it was Undertaker, not Austin, in that match. I wished it was Austin instead of Undertaker. Now,
I thought you soiled your pants when it was Undertaker.
I mean, look, it surprised me, and I reacted. I was excited. But yeah, it was because I was expecting Austin. That's why it caught me off guard. And then, we know it's a friend of the show, Gary Lamb. I saw him post this on social media. I was 100% in agreement. I knew in my brain there was absolutely no way, no shape, no how that Jon Moxley was going to show up at the WWE at WrestleMania. But when that music hit, look at it. It got me. Goosebumps on my arms right now thinking about it. for like a split second, I thought about it. Like, there's no way he let him talk him into this. He didn't, obviously, but...
You looked for him.
Yeah. Storytell... Dude, I can't... Look, and I know we're like complete WWE marks at this point with the storytelling they're due. I'll give you a line, and we completely segued back around before we get to the last piece of notes here. I messaged somebody. We were in it was Rafe. Rafe and I were texting back and forth about something, and when they interviewed Jey Uso on Monday Night Raw, and she asked him about Jimmy, I was like, right there. That's storytelling. Because did you see? Because he literally took a second and was like, "Man, I told Jimmy he should have came back with me, but I don't have time for that." And then that one little line, like the one little reaction, is like, "We're teasing something, folks." But hey, I gotta go. I gotta be focused. It's not about this. I'm focused on my shot at a championship. Blah 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 blah. That little piece was like, okay. Thank you, calling like little bitty pieces. Like, let's lay the little breadcrumbs out and let's lead people to water, right? But
God, I love
anyway,
that so much. I'm sorry, folks. When I'm just going through last week's stuff and I'm marking out on it, I'm just in a wrestling mood. I can't wait for this weekend. I can't wait for it. I'm just excited all the time these days, Nick.
There's a question I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I'm stealing a question, a quote question. tappedoutpod@gmail.com. I'd love to hear your answers as well. There's like a saying that goes around right now. When wrestling's bad, it can be bad. Really bad.
Mm-hmm.
But when wrestling's done right, is there anything better?
No.
Not to us. Not to us.
I mean, it's like you were talking about the Fallout series being so good. Mandalorian, stuff like that. But I still don't grab me like wrestling does. I get in the storyline, the good versus evil, the things they make you feel again. And it's the little things that I'm emotionally bonded to. the amount that wrestling has meant to me in the last year, where I haven't been able to work in the last year, and I've focused on wrestling. Excuse me. And the people I've met through wrestling, and the amount of bonds I've made with people, and the entertainment it's given me to go to indie shows. It's just a special thing to me, folks. Wrestling means a lot more to me than it probably should. But I'm thankful for that. And so I get excited about this stuff.
I'm going to read you something, Myron. This is the epitome of it right here. I'm not even going to tell you who says this. There's a quote. Put it this way, if you're a diehard WWE fan, you know who says this. If it looks good, you'll see it. If it sounds good, you'll hear it. If it's marketed right, you'll buy it. But if it's real, you'll feel it. That's wrestling when it's done right. And look, I know a lot of people will crap on who says it, and I don't want to even get down that rabbit hole, but it's 100% right, dude. It's wrestling at its core will make your arms, it'll make your, the hair on your arms stand up, it'll bubble up, it'll get you all fired up and all that kind of stuff, man. Look, good or bad, it'll happen.
Yeah.
Which brings us to some bad I want to get into before we get out of here.
Sad.
So yeah, Matt Cardona look, the story is, it's fresh news within the last 24 hours, appears to have torn his pectoral muscle. Looks like it's going to need surgery. No timeline yet. Look, the bad part of the good part about being the indie god that he was making a ton of money on his own. He wasn't beholden to anybody, and he was out hitting the roads. Now he's about to experience, unfortunately, the negative side of it. He doesn't have a guaranteed contract. He's not signed, any big promotion he's not going to get a pay. So listen, my thing is this, and I look, I know his wife is signed. She's in WWE now. But go to Matt Cardona's merch store, support the action figure podcast that he does. I can't remember the exact.
Is he a pro wrestling tees guy? Is he one?
I think he's in pro wrestling tees. Okay. Like,
slide over there and buy a shirt from him. I think I might do that as soon as we get done with this. Buy a Matt Cardona. Get one of our shirts too, just to help support us.
Yeah,
we love you and we need you. And those shirts are really slick. I'm gonna buy another one of them while I'm over there.
But yeah, so look, prayers go out to Matt Cardona. And listen, he's Patreon members, check that out. We're if you are, by the way, somewhere on, make sure you're liking, subscribing, turning notifications on. YouTube.com, Patreon memberships as well. Look, I'll kind of hit as the why. I'm strongly pushing it right now. In a second, audio podcasters. Look, we are on every, Amazon Music, iHeartMedia, Apple Podcast, Spotify, pretty much anywhere and everywhere there is a podcast platform. We're on it. Look, we're almost kind of like over saying it, like, listen, if you listen anywhere and we're not there, let us know, tappedoutpod@gmail.com, and we'll try to figure that out, because I haven't found one. So if you're on something, you're listening to podcast somewhere and we're not on it.
How do we get everywhere, Nick?
We go through listen, we tell everybody the best way to distribute your podcast is through Libsyn.com. You see it right there on the screen. Libsyn.com. Use the promo code TAPPED, and you can sign up and get up to 2 months for free. They distribute everywhere to all of the podcast platforms. That's how we're everywhere. It's just real simple.
A lot of people ask me.
Yeah.
How to start a podcast. First word I say, Libsyn.
Yeah. I can tell you where not to go. I can tell you where to go. We'll leave it at that, right? But it's Libsyn.com, promo code TAPPED, sign up there. I promise you, dude, it's the easiest way to get your podcast distributed out there and done. But I want to come back and circle back. I know this is our national show. I'm actually over on YouTube, because look, that's the problem. Everything is not going to be on our audio platforms. Some stuff is only going to be available on the our basic stuff. It's going to be on YouTube and Patreon, such as Bryce Cannon's going to be doing a bigger announcement here shortly. So anyway, that's all I've got. Anything, Myron, you got anything before we get out of here? Or?
No, sir.
All right, man. Well, what's the old saying, brother? If I've got nothing and you've got nothing, what time is it?
It's time to tap out.